Chapter 1 Introduction. After the expiration of 12 years of exile and residing in an unknown place for 1 year, the Pandavas demanded half of their kingdom from Duryodhana as was his promise, but he refused to give even as much land as could be covered by the point of a needle without waging war. The Pandavas sought permission from their mother Kunti Devi and accepted the challenge of the war. After this decision, both the Kauravas and the Pandavas began preparation for the war. Sage Vedavyasa had great affection for Dhritarashtra, the blind king of Hastinapura. Due to his affection, he said to Dhritarashtra, "War and massacre of the Kshatriyas is inevitable. If you want to see the scene of the battlefield, I can endow you with divine insight so as to enable you to see the scene of the war from the place you are sitting." Dhritarashtra replied, "I have been blind all my life. Now I don't want to see the slaughter of my own kith and kin, but I want to hear the details of the war." Then the sage Vyasa said, "I endow Sanjaya with this divine insight by which he will know, hear, and see not only the incidents of the battlefield but also the ideas in the minds of the warriors, and will narrate them to you." Saying so, the sage Vedavyasa endowed Sanjaya with the divine vision. The battle started on the battlefield of Kurukshetra at the appointed hour. Sanjaya stayed in the battlefield for 10 days. When Bhishma, being badly wounded with the arrows, fell off the chariot, Sanjaya conveyed the message to Dhritarashtra, who at that time was present in Hastinapura. Hearing this news, Dhritarashtra was filled with great sorrow and started weeping. Then he asked Sanjaya to narrate to him all the details of the war. Up to the 24th chapter of Bhishma Parva, that is the section of Mahabharata, Sanjaya narrated the incidents of the war. In the beginning of the 25th chapter, Dhritarashtra asked Sanjaya. In the Mahabharata, there are 18 sections. In those sections, there are several subsections. In the Bhishma section, there is this Bhagavad Gita, a subsection which begins with the 25th chapter of the Bhishma Parva and ends with the 42nd chapter. Sanjaya was born of Gavalgana. He possessed knowledge and righteousness like sages. He was Dhritarashtra's minister. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samavetaayuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kimakurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, "O Sanjaya, assembled on the holy field of Kurukshetra, eager to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do?" Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. In Kurukshetra, the gods performed holy sacrifice. King Kuru also performed penance there. Thus, being saturated with the spiritual atmosphere, the field of Kurukshetra has been called the field of righteousness, that is, Dharmakshetra. Here, by the word Kshetra in Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra means to say that this is the land of the Kurus. This is not merely the battlefield but the land of pilgrimage in which human beings, by performing holy actions, can attain benediction in this life. Therefore, by consulting the noble persons, this land has been chosen for both mundane and ultra mundane benefits. In this world, generally there are three root causes of disputes, that is, land, wealth, and woman. Out of these three, the kings primarily fight for the land. Hence, there is the significance of the name Kurukshetra here. In the Kuru family, the sons of Dhritarashtra as well as those of Pandu are included. Therefore, both of them have equal claim over the land of Kuru. But the Kauravas refused to give the Pandavas their share of the land. So the war between them becomes inevitable, though the word Kurukshetra is reasonable and justified because the land belongs to both the cousin groups. Yet the Indian culture is so unique that righteousness is given the top priority in it. Therefore, even an action such as war is performed on the field of righteousness, the land of pilgrimage, so that the warriors may attain salvation. Therefore, here the word Dharmakshetra has been used along with Kurukshetra. There is one more point which needs attention. In this first verse of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the first word is Dharma, and in the last verse of the 18th chapter, the last word is Mama. Therefore, if Dar is taken from the first word and Ma is taken from the last word, the word becomes Dharma, that is righteousness. Therefore, the whole of the Gita comes within righteousness, that is, by following the path of righteousness. The principles of the Gita are followed, and by discharging one's duty according to the doctrines of the Gita, the path of righteousness is followed. From these words, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre, all of us should learn that all actions should be performed by following the path of righteousness. Every action should be performed not with a selfish motive but for the welfare of all, and the scripture should be the authority in determining what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Samaveta Yuyutsavaha. Duryodhana did not accept the peace negotiations despite repeated proposals from kings. Nay, when Lord Krishna came to intervene as a mediator, Duryodhana bluntly refused to part with even as much land as could be covered by the point of a needle without waging a war. Thus, Pandavas had no alternative but to fight. Thus, the two groups assembled to fight. Though the two groups assembled to fight, yet Duryodhana had a keener desire for war in order to usurp the kingdom by fair means or foul, just means or unjust, by hook or crook. Thus, his side was very much willing to wage a war. Then the Pandavas had the virtue of righteousness on their side. For the sake of justice, they were prepared to face any hardships. Knowing the deadly consequences of a war, Yudhishthira did not want to indulge in it. But as by obeying their mother, the five Pandavas had married Draupadi, Yudhishthira, by obeying his mother, became willing to fight. Thus, Duryodhana and the members of his group were eager to fight for usurping the kingdom, while the Pandavas were compelled to fight for righteousness. Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva. The Pandavas regarded Dhritarashtra, being the elder brother of their father, as their own father and obeyed his order whether it was just or unjust. Therefore, here the word Mamakaha includes both the Kauravas and the Pandavas. But the word Pandava has been mentioned separately because Dhritarashtra was not fair and just to the Pandavas. He was not impartial. He had partiality for his sons. So the word Mamakaha has been used for his sons while Pandava has been used for the sons of Pandu. Thus, his emotions find expression in his speech. It was because of his partial attitude that he had to suffer torture of destruction of his own family. Therefore, every human being should learn a lesson that he should not be partial to the members of his house, street, village, province, country, and sect, because partiality leads to conflict rather than love and goodwill. The term Eva, also with the term Pandava, has been used to point out the fact that the Pandavas should not have waged war because they were righteous to the core, but they also came to the battlefield to wage war. So, what did they do there? Mamakaha and Pandava. Sanjaya will explain the word Mamakaha from the 2nd to the 13th verses to Dhritarashtra. Seeing the army of the Pandavas, his son Duryodhana told Dronacharya the names of the chief generals of the Pandava army in order to cause hatred in his mind against the Pandavas. After that, Duryodhana, naming the principal warriors of his army, praised their skill in warfare. In order to please and cheer up Duryodhana, Bhishma blew his conch loudly. Hearing the sound of his conches and trumpets, etc., of the Kaurava army blared forth. Then, from the 14th to the 19th verses, Sanjaya will explain the word Pandava as was asked by Dhritarashtra. He will say, Krishna, a supporter of the Pandavas, seated in a chariot, blew his conch. After him, Arjuna, Bhima, Yudhishthira, Nakula, and Sahadeva, etc., also blew their conches. The terrible sound of these conches rent the hearts of the army of Duryodhana. After that, Sanjaya, while talking about the Pandavas, will start the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna from the 20th verse. Kimakurvata. Kim has three meanings: doubt, reproach, that is blame, and question. The incident of the war cannot be doubted because after 10 days of fighting, when Bhishma fell off the chariot, Sanjaya conveyed the message to Dhritarashtra at Hastinapura. There cannot be reproach, that is blame, also because Dhritarashtra did not blame his sons and the Pandavas for the war when the war was already going on. Therefore, here Kim means question. Dhritarashtra questions Sanjaya to relate him all the incidents in details in sequence so that he may know them properly. Then Sanjaya answers the question. Sanjaya uvacha दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकं व्यूतं दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यम् उपसंगम्य राजा वचनमब्रवीत्. Sanjaya said, at that time, seeing the army of the Pandavas arrayed properly, approaching Dronacharya, Prince Duryodhana spoke these words. Tada means the time when both the armies were arrayed and Dhritarashtra was very much anxious to hear the account of the battlefield. Tu means Dhritarashtra put the question about his sons and sons of Pandu. So Sanjaya uses the word tu to tell Dhritarashtra first about his sons. Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudam means the army of the Pandavas was arrayed properly, that is, the warriors had no difference in their opinion. Righteousness and Lord Krishna were in their favor. Therefore, the Pandavas, though fewer in number, had greater influence. Seeing their army arrayed properly, Duryodhana was also influenced. So he, approaching Dronacharya, spoke prudential and serious words. Raja Duryodhana. Duryodhana was called Raja, the king, because Dhritarashtra had greatest attachment and affection for Duryodhana. Moreover, Duryodhana was the prince. He looked after the affairs of the entire empire, while Dhritarashtra was only the nominal head of the empire. Duryodhana was the main cause of the warfare also. It was because of all these factors that he was called king by Sanjaya. Acharyam upasangamya. It seems that there were three reasons why Duryodhana approached Dronacharya. Number one, he went for his selfish interest so that he could arouse ill will in Dronacharya's heart against the Pandavas, and Dronacharya might be specially partial to his army. Number two, it was proper on his part to go to Dronacharya to express his regard for him because he was his preceptor. Number three, it is very significant for the chief warrior not to leave his position, otherwise, the whole order of the army is disturbed. So, it was proper on the part of Duryodhana to go to Dronacharya. Here, a question may be raised that Duryodhana should have first of all approached Bhishma because Bhishma was the commander supreme. Then, why did he approach Dronacharya? The answer is that Drona and Bhishma both loved the Pandavas and the Kauravas, but Dronacharya had special kindness and love for Arjuna. Moreover, Duryodhana had pupil-preceptor relationship with Dronacharya, but he had no family relationship with him. Therefore, it was proper on his part to go to Dronacharya in order to please him. In practical life also, it is seen that a man for his selfish interest tries to please the person who is not closely related to him by giving him regard. Duryodhana thought that Bhishma was his grandfather, so it was easy to please him even if he was displeased because of his family relationship. So Bhishma also loved him very much. Bhishma blew his conch loudly in order to please and cheer up Duryodhana. Vachanam abravit. Here it was sufficient to use the word abravit, that is, spoke, which also includes vachanam, that is, words. So there was no need to use the word vachanam. Even then, the term vachanam has been used, which shows that Duryodhana spoke prudential and meaningful words in order to arouse ill will in Dronacharya's heart against the Pandavas and to win his favor so that he could fight wholeheartedly on the Kauravas' side and they could get victory. Thus, the term Vachanam was used with a selfish motive. Duryodhana, approaching Dronacharya, speaks the following words: Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharyam Mahatim Chamum Vyudam Drupadaputrena Tava Sishyena Dhimata. Behold, O Master, this mighty army of the sons of Pandu, arrayed for battle by your talented pupil Drishtadyumna, the son of Drupada. By addressing Drona as Acharya, it seems that Duryodhana means to say that he is the preceptor who taught the Kauravas and the Pandavas the science of warfare. So, he should not be partial to either of the groups. Tava Sishyena Dhimata. By this phrase, Duryodhana means that Dronacharya is so simple hearted that he has taught the science of warfare to Drishtadyumna, Drupada's son, who is born to kill Dronacharya himself, and who is so clever that he is determined to vanquish and kill none other than his own preceptor. Drupada Putrena. It means that Drupada, with the motive of getting you killed, got a holy sacrifice performed by the two Brahmanas, that is, men of the priest class, named Yaja and Upayaja, And thus Drishtadyumna was born. The same Drishtadyumna was standing before you as commander of the rival army. Though Duryodhana could speak the word Drishtadyumna instead of Drupada Putra, the son of Drupada, yet he intentionally used Drupada Putrena to remind Dronacharya of the enmity that Drupada had with him. So he meant that it was a good opportunity to take revenge. Panduputranam etam vyudam mahatim chamum pashya. Behold the mighty army of the Pandavas arrayed for battle by the son of Drupada. It means that Duryodhana wants to say, O master, the Pandavas whom you love have made the son of Drupada the general of their army, so he may kill you. Had they loved you, they would not have appointed him the general of their army. Though the army of the Kauravas was larger than that of the Pandavas, because the army of the Kauravas was 11 Akshauhini, while that of the Pandavas was only 7 Akshauhini. Yet the army of the Pandavas seemed to Duryodhana larger than what it actually was. The army of the Pandavas seemed more formidable to Duryodhana because it was arrayed in such a manner that even a small army seemed larger to Duryodhana. All the warriors of the Pandava army were united and of one mind, so it seemed larger in strength and enthusiasm. Drawing Dronacharya's attention to the army of the Pandavas, Duryodhana wants to say to Dronacharya that he should not regard the army of the rival group as common and small. He should fight carefully with all his might, and it was not difficult for him to defeat the son of Drupada because he was his pupil. Etam Pashya means that the army of the Pandavas is arrayed for the battle. So you should take a quick decision how to get victory over their army. After requesting Dronacharya to behold the army of the Pandavas, now Duryodhana shows him the chariot warriors of the army of the Pandavas. Here, one Akshauhini army consists of 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 65,610 horses, and 1,09,350 foot soldiers. Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhimarjunasamaayudhi Yuyudano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharataha Drishtaketuschekitanaha Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bhojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha Yudamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamaujascha Viryavan Shaubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Yeva Maharataha. There, in the army of the Pandavas, are mighty archers, peers in warfare to heroic Arjuna and Bhima, such as Satyaki, Virata, and the great chariot warrior Drupada, Drishtaketu Chekitana, and the valiant king of Kashi, Purujit Kunti Bhoja, and Shaibya, the best of men, are also there. Mighty Yudhamanyu, valiant Uttamauja, Abhimanyu, the son of Subhadra, and the 5 sons of Draupadi are also there. All of them are great chariot warriors. Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi. Those who possess big bows and shoot with bows and arrows are called Maheshwasa, that is, the mighty archers. They are very valiant and extraordinary warriors. In warfare, they are as strong as Bhima, and in the use of weapons and missiles such as bows and arrows, etc., as expert as Arjuna. Yuyudhana. Yuyudhana, named Satyaki, learnt the science of warfare from Arjuna. Thus, he was so obliged to him that he did not go to the side of Duryodhana, even though Lord Krishna had given Duryodhana his Narayani army. In order to arouse malice in the mind of Dronacharya, Duryodhana first of all mentions the name of Yuyudhana, the disciple of Arjuna. He means to say, "You have taught Arjuna archery and granted him the boon that you would try that he would be the matchless archer in the world. Thus, you have so much love for him. But he is so ungrateful that he is arrayed in the army against you, while Arjuna's disciple Yuyudhana is arrayed on his side." Yuyudhana was not killed in the warfare, but in the mutual fight among the Yadavas. Viratascha. Duryodhana says it was Virata who was responsible for the insult of warrior Susharma. Again, it was because of him that you became unconscious with the Sammohana, that is, beguiling weapon, and we had to flee from the battlefield, leaving his cows. The same King Virata is opposing you now. Dronacharya had no enmity or malice with the King Virata, but Duryodhana thinks that if he names Drupada after Yuyudhana, Dronacharya may think that Duryodhana is instigating him to fight against the Pandavas and he is arousing the feeling of enmity with them. So, Duryodhana names Virata before Drupada so that Dronacharya may not see through his trick and may fight bravely. King Virata and his three sons named Uttara, Shveta, Shanka were killed in the war of Mahabharata. Drupadascha Maharataha. Duryodhana says, "You reminded Drupada of your old friendship, but he insulted you in the assembly, saying that he was a king and you a beggar, and thus there was no question of any friendship between him and you, and caused a son to be born to him who would kill you. The same great chariot warrior named Drupada is arrayed to fight against you along with Arjuna." Later, King Drupada was killed in the warfare by Dronacharya. Drishtaketuhu. How foolish this Drishtaketu is that he is fighting on the side of Sri Krishna, who killed his father Shishupala with the disc in the assembly. Drishtaketu was killed by Dronacharya later in the battle. Chekitanaha. The entire Yadava army is ready to fight on our side, but that solitary Yadava is fighting on the side of Pandavas. Chekitana also was killed by Duryodhana later in the battle. Kasi Rajascha Viryavan. This king of Kashi is very valiant and is a great chariot warrior and is fighting on the side of the Pandavas. So be careful, as you have a very formidable foe to deal with. The king of Kashi was killed in the battle of Mahabharata. Purujit Kunti Bojascha. Though both Purujit and Kunti Boja, being Kunti's brothers or maternal uncles to us, and the Pandavas, yet being partial, they are arrayed to fight against us. Purujit and Kunti Boja both were killed at the hands of Dronacharya later in the battle. Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. Shaibhya is the father-in-law to Yudhishthira. He is noble and very strong. He is our relative, but he is also on the side of the Pandavas. Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamaujascha Viryavan. Yudhamanyu and Uttamauja, who are very strong and valiant warriors of Panchala country, have been assigned to the task of protecting the wheels of my enemy Arjuna's chariot. So keep an eye on them. Yudhamanyu and Uttamauja were slain in their sleep by Ashwatthama. Saubhadra, he is Abhimanyu, the son to Krishna's sister named Shubhadra. He is very brave. He learnt the art of piercing an array of soldiers standing in the form of a circle while he was in his mother's womb. So beware of him. Abhimanyu was killed by Duchasana's son when he unjustly hit him with a mace on the head. Draupadeyascha. Draupadi gave birth to 5 sons named Prativindya, Shrutasoma, Shrutakarma, Shatanika, and Shrutasena, respectively, from Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva. Watch her 5 sons very carefully. She openly insulted me in the assembly. So avenge that insult by killing her 5 sons. Ashwatthama killed the 5 sons of Pandavas while they were asleep at night. Sarva Yeva Maharataha. All of them are great chariot warriors. They are well versed in the scriptures and in the use of arms. A great chariot warrior is one who can conduct 10,000 archers. There is a large number of such great chariot warriors in the army of the Pandavas. Duryodhana described valor, bravery, and skill of the army of the Pandavas in warfare so that hatred might be aroused in Dronacharya against the Pandavas and he might be full of greater zeal. But then a second thought came to his mind that Dronacharya was at heart partial to the Pandavas, so he might make a peace treaty with the Pandavas. As soon as this thought came to Duryodhana's mind, he described the heroes of his side of the army who were very well trained in warfare in the next 3 verses. अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तान्निबोधद्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते. O best of the twice born, that is Brahmana, know the principal warriors, the generals of my army also. I name them for your information. Asmakam tu visishtaye tan nibodha dvijottama. Duryodhana says to Dronacharya, O best of the twice born, you should also know that in our army also there are great chariot warriors who are in no way less valiant and less trained in warfare. Rather, they are more valiant and better trained in warfare. In the 3rd verse, Pashya and here Nibodha, verbs are used because the army of the Pandavas is standing in front of them. Therefore, Duryodhana uses the verb Pashya, that is, behold. But the army of the Kauravas is not in front of Dronacharya. It is on the side of his back. So, Duryodhana uses the verb Nibodha, that is, know. Nayaka mama sainyasya samjanartam tan bravimite. I am mentioning the names of the chief generals, marshals, and the great chariot warriors of my army to draw your attention to them. Samnyartham means that there are innumerable generals who cannot be named easily. Therefore, I am just drawing your attention as you know all of them. In this verse, Duryodhana probably wants to say that his side is in no way weaker than that of the Pandavas, but is rather stronger, yet according to politics, however weak the army of the enemy may be, it should not be regarded as weak. Therefore, they should not have in the least the feeling of neglect and indifference towards the enemy. So, he has already described the warriors of the other side to make him careful, and now he is telling the names of the warriors of his army. Secondly, after seeing the army of the Pandavas compact and well disciplined, he was influenced and also a bit afraid. The reason was that, in spite of being small, there were several righteous persons, and also Lord Krishna himself was there in that army. The righteous persons and God leave their influence on all the creatures, including those having the most sinful conduct, and even on animals, birds, trees, and plants. The reason is that God and righteousness are eternal, while all the temporal powers are transient. Therefore, Duryodhana is also influenced by the army of the Pandavas. But depending on the material and temporal power, he wants to assure Dronacharya that their army is superior to that of the Pandavas. Therefore, they can easily gain a victory over the army of the Pandavas. भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च. Yourself, Bhishma, Karna, and Kripacharya, who is ever victorious in battlefields, and Ashwathama, Vikarna, and Saumadatti, that is Bhurishrava, the son of Somadatta. Bhavan Bhishmascha, you and Bhishma both are unique. So, if you fight applying your full vigor, neither the gods, nor genies, nor devils, nor men can encounter you. Both of you are famous for your valor throughout the world. Bhishma has been a celibate since birth and he can't be killed without his own will. In the war of Mahabharata, Dronacharya was killed by Drishtadyumna while Bhishma died on summer solstice of his own free will. Karnascha. Karna is very brave. I believe that he by himself can gain a victory over the army of the Pandavas. Even Arjuna is no match for him. Such a valiant warrior is standing on our side. Karna was killed by Arjuna in the war of Mahabharata. Kripascha Samitinjayaha. Kripa is immortal. He is our well-wisher and can gain a victory over the whole army of the Pandavas. Though Duryodhana, after mentioning the names of Dronacharya and Bhishma, should have named Kripacharya, yet Duryodhana had more faith in Karna than in Kripacharya. So Karna's name was spontaneously uttered by him. But he wanted to please Dronacharya and Bhishma by calling Kripacharya ever victorious in battle, lest they should regard it as an insult to Kripacharya. Ashwathama. He is also immortal. Being your son, that is Dronacharya's son, he is very valiant. He is well versed in the science of warfare because he has learnt it from you. Vikarnascha Saumadattis Tataivacha. You should not think that only the Pandavas are righteous. On our side, my brother Vikarna is also very righteous and brave. Similarly, Bhurishrava, the grandson of our great grandfather's brother Bahlika and the son of Somadatta, is also very righteous. He has also performed several holy sacrifices by offering great gifts. He is also a very brave and great chariot warrior. In the warfare, Vikarna was killed by Bhima and Bhurishrava was killed by Satyaki. Here, by mentioning these names, Duryodhana means to say, O preceptor, that is Acharya, in our army there are so many valiant warriors such as you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripacharya, etc., while in the army of the Pandavas such valiant warriors are not seen. In our army, two great warriors named Kripacharya and Ashwathama are immortal, while in the army of the Pandavas there is none. Moreover, in our army there is no scarcity of righteous persons. Therefore, we need not be afraid of the Pandavas. अन्ये च बहवः शूरा मदर्ते त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः. And there are many other heroes well trained in warfare who, equipped with various weapons and missiles, have staked their lives for my sake. अन्ये च बहवः शूरा मदर्ते त्यक्तजीविताः. Besides the above-mentioned heroes, there are many great chariot warriors such as Bahlika, Shalya, Bhagadatta, Jayatratha, etc. in our army who have come here to fight by staking their lives for me. They may be killed in the war, but they will not leave the battlefield. How should I express my hearty thankfulness to them before you? Nana-shastra-praharanaha sarve yuddha-visharadaha. All these heroes are expert in the use of weapons such as swords, maces, tridents and missiles such as arrows and javelins, etc. They are in every way expert in the science of warfare. When Duryodhana understood that he could not trick Dronacharya, he had a second thought. This thought is described by Sanjaya in the next verse. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tidhametesham balam bhimabhirakshitam. Our army is meager and easy to conquer because it is guarded by Bhishma, a well-wisher of both the armies. But their army, marshalled by Bhima, is unconquerable because Bhima is partial only to his own army. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam. Duryodhana thinks about his army, that is, our army is though larger than that of the Pandavas, is easy to be conquered because our army is unwieldy, indisciplined, disunited, and faint-hearted, while the army of the Pandavas is compact, disciplined, united, and fearless. The chief protector of our army is Bhishma, who is friendly to both the armies. He is a great devotee of Krishna. He, in his heart, has a great respect for Yudhishthira and great love for Arjuna. Therefore, though outwardly he is on our side, yet at heart he is a well-wisher of the Pandavas. He is the field marshal of our army. Under these circumstances, how can our army gain a victory over the Pandavas? Paryaptam tvidametesham balam bhimabhirakshitam. But this army of the Pandavas can gain a victory over our army very easily because all the warriors of their army are united without having any difference of opinions. The protector of their army is Bhima, who is brave and who has always defeated me since childhood. He has taken a pledge to kill all the 100 brothers, including me. He is bent on destroying us. His body is as strong as adamant. I poisoned him, but it did not kill him. Having such a protector as Bhima, the army of the Pandavas is certainly capable of gaining a victory over our army. Here, a doubt may arise that Duryodhana named Bhishma, who was their field marshal, in defense of their army, but he named Bhima, who was not a field marshal, in defense of the army of the Pandavas. The answer is that at that time Duryodhana was not thinking about the field marshals but about the power of the two armies. Duryodhana was very much influenced by Bhima's power, so he named Bhima as the protector of the army of the Pandavas. An important fact to be noted here. Arjuna, beholding the army of the Kauravas, raises up his bow in the verse 20 of chapter 1, while Duryodhana, beholding the army of the Pandavas, approaches Dronacharya and requests him to behold the army of the Pandavas arrayed for battle. It proves that Duryodhana has been horror struck. Though he is horror struck, yet with his trick he wants to please Dronacharya and instigate him against the Pandavas. The reason is that in Duryodhana's heart there are unrighteousness, injustice, and sin, and it is a rule that an unrighteous, unjust, and sinful person can't live happily and peacefully. On the other hand, in Arjuna's heart, there are righteousness and justice. So, he does not play any trick and have any fear to serve his selfish interest. He is fearless, courageous, and brave. That is why he orders Lord Krishna, O Krishna, place my chariot between the two armies, in the 21st verse of this chapter. It means that the person who depends on perishable riches and property, etc., and whose heart is full of unrighteousness, injustice, and ill feelings doesn't possess real power. He is hollow from within and is never fearless. On the other hand, one who depends on God and follows righteousness is never horror struck. His power is real and he always remains free from chaos and fear. Therefore, the strivers who aspire for God realization should perform their duty by depending only on God and for His sake by renouncing unrighteousness and injustice, etc. They should never follow the path of unrighteousness by attaching importance to material prosperity and contact born pleasures because these two lead men to damnation. Now, Duryodhana gives instruction to all the great chariot warriors of his army to please Bhishma and says, Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagavamastita Bhishmameva bhirakshantu bhavantas sarvayevahi. Now, all of you stationed in your respective positions on all fronts, guard Bhishma in particular by all means. All of you, that is warriors, stationed in your respective positions on different fronts, should guard Bhishma by all means. By saying the above words, Duryodhana wants to please Bhishma so that he may be partial to his army. Secondly, he gives the instruction to the warriors of his army to see that Shikandi should not come before Bhishma. If Shikandi comes before Bhishma, the latter will not use his arms and weapons on him because he was a woman in the previous birth. And in that birth also, first he was a woman and later he was changed into a man. So Bhishma, by regarding him as a woman, has promised not to fight with Shikandi. Shikandi has taken birth by Lord Shiva's boon to kill Bhishma. Therefore, if Bhishma is protected from Shikandi, he will kill all the other warriors of the army of the Pandavas and their victory is certain. Therefore, Duryodhana gives instruction to all the great chariot warriors of his army to guard Bhishma. Finding Duryodhana discouraged by getting no encouraging response from Dronacharya, Bhishma, in order to express his affection for him, cheers him up. This is expressed by Sanjaya in the next verse. Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vriddha pitamahaha simhanadam vinadyochaihi shankam dadmau pratapavan. The grand old man of the Kaurava race, their glorious granduncle Bhishma, cheering up Duryodhana, roared terribly like a lion and blew his conch. Tasya sanjana yan harsham. Here it should have been said that Bhishma blew his conch and it cheered up Duryodhana. But here it is been said that Bhishma, cheering up Duryodhana, blew his conch. Sanjaya wants to express that the very action of blowing the conch will certainly cheer up Duryodhana. To express this influence of Bhishma, Sanjaya uses the adjective Pratapavan, that is glorious. Kurur Vriddha. Though in the Kuru race, Bahlika, the younger brother of Bhishma's father Shantanu, was older than Bhishma, yet Bhishma possessed better knowledge of righteousness and God than all the other old members in the race. So Sanjaya calls him Kuru Vriddha, the grand old man of the Kaurava race. Pratapavan. Bhishma was well known for his renunciation of wealth and women. That is, he did not accept the kingdom, nor did he marry. He was well versed in military science and the scriptures. So, people were very much influenced by him. When Bhishma was carrying off all by himself the daughters of the king of Kashi from the place where the suitors had assembled to marry them, the suitors of the warrior class attacked him, but he defeated alone all of them. He was so well versed in the science of weapons and warfare that he did not accept his defeat even before his preceptor Parashurama, who had taught him the science of weapons, etc. Thus, he had a great influence over the Kshatriyas, that is, warrior class, because of his skill in military science. When Bhishma was lying on the arrow bed, Lord Krishna said to Yudhishthira, "If you want to put any question on righteousness, that is Dharma, ask him now, because the sun of knowledge of the scriptures is going to set." That is, Bhishma, a great scholar of the scriptures, is going to die. Thus we see that he had great mastery over the scriptures and others were very much influenced by his knowledge. Pitamaha. This word seems to mean that Dronacharya did not give any importance to the tricks played by Duryodhana. He understood that Duryodhana wanted to trick him, so he remained silent. But Bhishma is the grand uncle of Duryodhana. So he says Duryodhana's childlike behavior in his tricks. Hence, Bhishma, unlike Dronacharya, breaks his silence and blows his conch to cheer up Duryodhana and show his affection for him. Simmanadam vinadyochaihi shankam dadmau. When a lion roars ferociously, huge wild animals like elephants, etc., get horror struck. Similarly, by roaring ferociously, Bhishma blew his conch in order to cheer up Duryodhana and horrify the warriors of the hostile army. In the verse that follows, Sanjaya narrates the effect of the sound of the conch blown by the Bhishma. Tatashankascha bheryascha panavaanakagomukaha sahasaivabhyahanyanta sashabdastu mulo bhavat. Then conches, kettle drums, tabors, drums and cow horns suddenly blared forth and the noise was tumultuous. Bhishma had not blown his conch to declare war. His purpose was to cheer up Duryodhana. But the army of the Kauravas thought that the war was declared. So, hearing the sound of the conch, all musical instruments such as conches, etc., of the Kaurava army suddenly blared forth. Conches are found in the sea. They are blown in adoration of God on auspicious occasions and for declaring war. Kettle drums, that is beri, or drums with large yellow hollow bowls of iron with tops made of the skin of buffaloes and are beaten with a wooden stick. They are kept in temples and forts and are beaten specially on functions and auspicious occasions. Tabors, that is panava, or small drums like a tambourine. They are made of iron or wood with tops made of the skin of goats and are beaten with the hand or the wooden stick. Their beating is regarded as auspicious as adoration to Lord Ganesha. Anaka, that is drum, is a musical instrument made of clay with the top made of leather and beaten with the hand. Gomukha, that is cow horn, is a musical wind instrument consisting of a long metal tube, usually bent like a serpent having a cow shaped mouth and is blown with the mouth. The Kaurava army was full of great enthusiasm. Therefore, as soon as Bhishma blew his conch, all their musical instruments suddenly blared forth all at once without effort. The sound of the musical instruments, such as conch, etc., of the Kaurava army, standing in divisions and subdivisions, was tumultuous, and there was an echo. In the beginning of this chapter, Dhritarashtra asked Sanjaya, "What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do while assembled on the battlefield?" Therefore, Sanjaya answered from the 2nd to the 13th verses what Dhritarashtra's sons did. Now, in the next verse, Sanjaya answers what Pandu's son did. ततश्येतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महती स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवपाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्कौ प्रदद्मतुः. Then seated in a glorious chariot drawn by white horses, Sri Krishna as well as Arjuna blew their divine conches. Tatashvaiter Hayer Yukte. The Gandharva, that is a celestial musician named Chitraratha, gave Arjuna 100 divine horses. It was their specialty that they remained 100, even though many of them were killed on the battlefield. They could go to heaven or live on the earth. Out of these 100 horses, 4 beautiful and well trained horses were harnessed to Arjuna's chariot. Mahati Syandane Stitau. Fire god suffered from indigestion because a lot of ghee, that is clarified butter, was offered in holy sacrifice to him. Therefore, fire god wanted to cure his indigestion by eating, that is, burning medicinal herbs of the Kandava forest. But he was unable to burn it because it was protected by other gods. Whenever he tried to burn it, Indra, the king of the gods, extinguished the fire with the rainfall. At last, with Arjuna's help, fire god cured his indigestion by burning the whole forest, and being pleased with Arjuna, fire god gave him a very big and glorious chariot. As many weapons and missiles as could be accommodated in 9 bullock carts were kept in it. It was gilded and glorious. Its wheels were strong and huge. Its flag shone like lightning, and it was about a yojana, that is 8 miles in length. In spite of being so long, it was neither heavy, nor could stop, nor could be entangled in trees, etc. Hanuman, that is the monkey god who acted as a spy in Rama's march against Ravana, was sitting on the flag. Stitav means that the beautiful and glorious chariot became more beautiful and more glorious because Lord Krishna himself and his dear devotee Arjuna were sitting in it. Madhava Pandavas Chaiva. Ma is Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, and Dava is the husband or the owner. Therefore, Madhava means the Lord of Lakshmi. Sri Krishna, the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, here Pandava has been used for Arjuna because he is the chief among the Pandavas. Sri Krishna mentions Pandavanam Dhananjaya in 10th chapter, Shloka 37. Lord Krishna says, "Among the Pandavas, I am Dhananjaya, that is Arjuna." He has been called chief among the Pandavas because he had no individuality apart from Lord Krishna. Arjuna and Sri Krishna were the incarnations of Nara and Narayana respectively. In the beginning of every parva, that is section, there is salutation to Nara, that is Arjuna, and Narayana, that is Lord Krishna. Thus, from this point of view, also Sri Krishna Paramatma and Arjuna both were chiefs. Sanjaya also says in the last verse of the Gita, wherever is Sri Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, and wherever is Arjuna, the wielder of the bow, that is the Gandiva bow, there are prosperity, victory, glory, and righteousness. This is my conviction. This is mentioned in chapter 18, shloka 78. Divyau Shankau Pradatmatuhu. Sri Krishna Paramatma and Arjuna loudly blew their conches, which were glorious and divine. Here it may be stated that it was proper on the part of Bhishma to blow his conch first because he was the field marshal of the Kaurava army. But how far was it justified on the part of Sri Krishna Paramatma, the chariot driver of the Pandava army, to blow the conch when the field marshal Drishtadyumna of the Pandava army was there? The answer is that Sri Krishna Paramatma is ever chief whether he works as a chariot driver or a great chariot warrior. He is ever great whatever rank he may hold, because he is Achyuta, that is fixed. He never deviates from his divine nature. In Pandava army, Sri Krishna Paramatma was the chief and the director. Even when he was a boy, Nanda and Upananda, etc., obeyed him. Therefore, they, by obeying him, started to worship Govardhana, that is, a mountain, instead of Indra, the king of gods, who had been worshipped for generations. It means that the Lord, in whatever state, place, and circumstance he may live, is ever chief. Therefore, Sri Krishna Paramatma was the first in the Pandava army to blow his conch. One who is really inferior regards himself as superior after getting an appointment to a high post. On the contrary, one who is really superior is superior everywhere, and he elevates the post on which he works. Thus, Sri Krishna Paramatma, while working as a chariot driver, elevated that post. Now, Sanjaya in the next 4 verses, explaining the previous verse and giving some more details, describes the blowing of conches by other warriors. Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadattam Dhananjayaha Paundram Dadmau Mahashankam Bhimakarma Vrikodaraha. Hrishikesha, that is, Sri Krishna, blew his conch named Panchajanya. Dhananjaya, that is Arjuna, his conch called Devadatta, while Vrikodara, that is Bhima of terrific deeds, blew his mighty conch Poundra. Panchajanyam Hrishikeshaha. Hrishikesha means the master of mind and the senses. Sri Krishna Paramatma, who pervades the internal parts, viz., who is acquainted with the hearts of all the people, stationed on the side of the Pandavas, blew his conch named Panchajanya. Lord Krishna, having killed the demon named Panchajana, who appeared in the form of a conch, accepted him as a conch. So his conch was named as Panchajanya. Devadattam Dhananjayaha. The word Dhananjaya means conqueror of wealth. At the time of the holy sacrifice named Rajasuya, Arjuna appropriated wealth of many rulers by gaining victory over them. So Arjuna was called Dhananjaya. Indra, the king of gods, gave Arjuna the conch named Devadatta. While he was fighting with demons named Nivata Kavacha, etc., it produced such a loud and horrifying sound that the army of enemies became horror-struck. This conch was blown by Arjuna. Bhima was named Bhima Karma, that is, doer of the terrible deeds, because he killed demons such as Hidimba, Baka, and Jata, etc., and valiant warriors such as Kichaka and Jarasandha, etc. In his belly, besides the fire which helps to digest food, there was a special fire named Vrika, which digested a lot of food very easily. It was because of his great digestive power that he was named Vrikodara. Thus, Bhima, who was the doer of the terrific deeds and possessed strong digestive power, blew his mighty conch Poundra. अनन्तविजयं राजा कुन्तिपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः नकुलः सह देवश्च सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch Anantavijaya, while Nakula and Sahadeva blew their conches the Sughosha and Manipushpaka respectively. Arjuna, Bhima, and Yudhishthira, the three were Kunti's sons, while Nakula and Sahadeva were Madri's sons. So the adjective Kuntiputra, that is Kunti's sons, has been used for Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira has been called a king because he was the ruler of half of the Indraprastha kingdom before exile, and according to the promise and the law, he should have been a king after living in exile for 12 years and 1 year's incognito residence. Moreover, by calling him a king, Sanjaya wanted to hint that he would be the king of the entire territory afterwards. काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः दृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकीश्चापराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्कान् दद्मुः पृथक् पृथक्. The king of Kashi, the excellent archer, and Shikhandi, the great chariot warrior, Drishtadyumna and Virata, and invincible Satyaki, King Drupada, as well as the 5 sons of Draupadi, and the mighty armed Abhimanyu, son of Shubhadra, all of them blew their respective conches. The great chariot warrior Shikhandi was very brave. He, in his previous birth, was a woman, that is, the daughter named Amba of the king of Kashi, and in this birth also was born as a daughter to King Drupada. Afterwards, she became a man by getting virility from a genie named Shituna Karna. Bhishma knew all this, and therefore he regarded him as a woman and did not shoot arrows at him. Arjuna, while fighting, keeping Shikhandi ahead, shot arrows at Bhishma and overthrew him from the chariot. Arjuna's son Abhimanyu was very brave. In warfare, he killed many warriors by entering the array of soldiers stationed in the form of a circle formed by Dronacharya. At last, 6 great chariot warriors of the army of the Kauravas, surrounding him by foul means, attacked him with weapons and missiles. He was killed when Duchasana's son hit him on the head with a mace. Sanjaya mentioned only one warrior named Bhishma who blew his conch from the Kaurava army, while he mentioned 18 warriors such as Sri Krishna Paramatma, Arjuna, Bhima, etc. from the Pandava army. It seems that Sanjaya did not want to describe the unrighteous side of the Kaurava army in detail, but he had a great regard for Sri Krishna Paramatma, the Pandavas and the Pandava army because of their righteousness. So he thought it proper to describe the warriors of the Pandava army in more detail, and he took delight in describing them. In the next verse, there is a description of the effect of the sound of the Pandavas' conches on the Kaurava army. न घोषोदार्धराष्ट्राणां हृदयानि व्यधारयत् नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव tumulo व्यनुनादयन्. The terrible sound echoing through the sky and the earth rent the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons who usurped the kingdom by unjust means. The peal of the conches of the Pandava army was so thunderous, roaring, and horrifying that it echoed through the sky and the earth and rent the hearts of the Kauravas, who usurped the empire, and also of the kings who had come to fight from their side. It means that as a weapon or a missile rends the heart and causes pain in the heart, the sound of the conches rent their hearts and caused pain in them. That sound discouraged the Kaurava army, and its warriors were horror struck at the formidable strength of the Pandava army. Sanjaya was relating the incidents to Dhritarashtra, so it seems that it was not proper on his part to mention Dardharashtranam, that is, Dhritarashtra's sons. He should have mentioned Tattvakinanam, that is, his sons and relatives, which would have been courteous. But he used the word correctly because it was justified on his part to use the word as he meant to say that his sons usurped the kingdom. Their hearts were rent because they favored. Therefore, the use of the word is justified. Here a question may arise why there was no effect of the sound of the musical instrument such as conches, drums, etc. of the 11 Akshauhini army of the Kauravas on the Pandava army, but the sound of the conches of the 7 Akshauhini army of the Pandavas rent the hearts of the Kaurava army. The answer is that the hearts of those who are righteous and just are impregnable. The Pandavas had ruled over the empire with justice and righteousness before exile and also demanded their empire from the Kauravas, which was quite a just demand. On the other hand, the hearts of those who are unrighteous, unjust, and sinful are weak, doubtful, and full of fear. It is their sin or injustice which weakens their hearts. Duryodhana and his group tried their best to kill the Pandavas by any means, fair or foul. They usurped their empire and gave them troubles. Thus they stood for unrighteousness. So the sound of the conches of 7 Akshauhini army of the Pandavas rent their hearts. Their hearts had a piercing pain. This incident warns a striver that he should never have unjust and unrighteous dealings through his body, speech, and mind, because they weaken the heart and create fear in it. For example, the creatures of the world, including the gods and the demons, were afraid of Ravana, the king of Sri Lanka. But when he abducted Sita, he, being terrified, saw here and there to know if anyone was watching him. In the first verse, Dhritarashtra put a question about his sons and the sons of Pandu. Sanjaya answered the question from the second verse to the 19th verse. Now, Sanjaya starts the dialogue between Sri Krishna Paramatma and Arjuna, which is known as the Bhagavad Gita, in the next verse. Atavyavasthitan drishtva dardarashtraन् kapidvajaha pravritte shastra sampate dhanurudyamya pandavaha hrishikesham tada vakyam idamahamahipate. Now, O Lord of the earth, seeing Dhritarashtra's sons arrayed against him and fighting about to commence with missiles, Pandava, that is Arjuna, whose ensign badge is Hanuman, lifting his bow, spoke the following words to Sri Krishna Paramatma. Ata, this word means that now Sanjaya begins the Bhagavad Gita in the form of the dialogue between Sri Krishna Paramatma and Arjuna. This dialogue ends with the word iti used in the 74th verse of the 18th chapter. Similarly, the Gospel of the Gita begins with the 11th verse of the 2nd chapter and ends with the 66th verse of the 18th chapter. Pravritte Shastra Sampate. Though Bhishma had blown his conch to cheer up Duryodhana not to declare war, yet the Kaurava army and the Pandava army thought that the war was declared, and so they became ready with weapons and missiles in their hands. Seeing them equipped with weapons and missiles, Arjuna also lifted his bow named Gandiva. Vyavasthitan Dardharashtran Drishtva. By these words, Sanjaya means when your son Duryodhana saw the army of the Pandavas, he fled to Dronacharya, but when Arjuna saw the army of the Kauravas, he lifted his bow. Dhanurudyamya, that is, took his bow. It shows that Duryodhana was filled with fear, while Arjuna was fearless, courageous, and valiant at that time. Kapidwaja. By using this epithet, Kapidwaja, Sanjaya wants to remind Dhritarashtra of Hanuman sitting on the banner of Arjuna's chariot. When the Pandavas used to live in the forest, one day suddenly the wind god dropped a divine lotus having 1,000 leaves before Draupadi. She was very much pleased to see it, and she said to Bhima, "O excellent among the brave, bring me several lotuses of this kind." Bhima started from there to satisfy her desire. When he reached the Kadali forest, he happened to meet Hanuman. Both of them talked for some time. At last, Hanuman wanted to grant him a boon. Bhima said, "May your kindness continue to me." Hanuman said, "O son of Vingard, when becoming uneasy by being injured with arrows and weapons, entering the army of the enemy, you make a roar. I will enhance that roar by adding my own to it. Moreover, by sitting on the banner of Arjuna's chariot, I will make such a roar that it will be deadly terrifying to your enemy, and you will gain a victory over them and kill them very easily. Therefore, the victory of those on whose banner Hanuman was sitting was certain." Pandava. Dhritarashtra used the word Pandava in his question. Therefore, Sanjaya also used the word Pandava several times to remind Dhritarashtra of the Pandavas. Hrishikesham tada vakyam idamaha mahipate. Duryodhana, seeing the army of the Pandavas approaching his preceptor named Drona, spoke the words full of trick, while Arjuna, seeing the army of the Kauravas approaching Sri Krishna Paramatma, who is a world teacher, who is acquainted with the hearts of all, and who is the inspirer of mind and intellect, etc., spoke the words full of bravery, courage, and duty. Arjuna uvacha senayorubayormadhye ratam stapayamechyuta yavadetan rishikeshaha yudukkamanavasthitan kairmyasaha yodavyam asmin ranasamudhyame. O Achyuta, that is, Achyuta means one who does not deviate from his divine glory. Place my chariot between the two armies and keep it there till I have carefully observed these war-minded warriors with whom I must wage this war. The two armies were stationed at such a distance from each other from where they could shoot arrows, etc., at each other. Arjuna asked Lord Krishna to place the chariot in the middle. It was middle in two ways, that is, the middle of the breadth of the armies, or the middle of the two armies, viz., the distance of the two armies from that point should be the same. His purpose was to see the two armies easily. Senayor Ubayor Madhye has been used in the Gita 3 times here in the 24th verse of this chapter and in the 10th verse of the second chapter and also the 21st verse of the first chapter. He uses this phrase 3 times because the first time he orders Sri Krishna Paramatma to place the chariot between the two armies. Then Sri Krishna Paramatma, placing the chariot between the two armies, asks Arjuna to behold the Kauravas, and afterwards preaches the gospel to despondent Arjuna right there. To begin with, Arjuna was stout-hearted. When he saw his kith and kin in battle array, he developed the attitude of indifference, being overwhelmed with attachment. Finally, Sri Krishna Paramatma preached the gospel of the Gita, which dispelled his attachment. It means that a man, in whatever circumstances he is, by making the proper use of those circumstances, can be free from desires and can realize God, because God, that is Paramatma, always remains uniform in all circumstances. How long should the chariot be placed between the two armies? Arjuna says, "Keep the chariot there till I have carefully observed those war-minded kings with their armies who are stationed in the army of the Kauravas and with whom I have to wage this war. Let me see the heroes I have to encounter. Let me also see which of them are inferior, superior, and equal to me in heroism." Here, by the phrase Yodu Kaman, Arjuna means to say that they sent a proposal of conciliation, but the Kauravas did not accept it because they had a keen desire to wage war. So he wants to observe the warriors and their bravery, which makes them so confident to wage a war. योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं ययेतेऽत्र समागताः दार्धराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धप्रियचिकीर्षवः. I desire to observe evil-minded Duryodhana's well-wishers who have assembled here and are ready to fight. Here, Arjuna, by calling Duryodhana evil-minded, wants to convey how Duryodhana conspired their ruin several times and tried his best to humiliate them. Arjuna says we are the lawful owners of half of the empire, but he wants to usurp it. He is evil-minded, and these kings have assembled here to do good to him. But the duty of a friend is to give him such advice as may add to his welfare now and hereafter. But these kings, instead of purifying his evil-mindedness, want to enhance it and are really degrading him by instigating him to wage the war. They are not thinking of his welfare here and hereafter. As friends, they should have advised him to rule over half of the kingdom and hand over the other half to us, the Pandavas. Thus, he would have possessed half of the empire, and his life in the next world would have also been pure and good. I want to observe the warriors who are so impatient to wage the war. They have favored unrighteousness and injustice, so they are sure to be ruined again in the war against us. Yotsya. It means that Arjuna wants to see those who have a keen desire to fight. In the next two verses, Sanjaya tells us what Lord Krishna did after hearing Arjuna's words. Sanjaya uvacha evamukto hrishikesho गुडाकेशेन भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये स्थापयित्वा रथोत्तमं भीष्मद्रोणप्रमुखतः सर्वेषां च महीक्षिताम् उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान् समवेतान् कुरूनिति. O Bharata, that is born in Bharata family, thus addressed by Gutakesha, that is one who has control over sleep, viz. Arjuna. Hrishikesha, that is the lord of the senses, placed the magnificent chariot between the two armies in front of Bhishma, Drona, and all the kings, and said, O Partha, the son of Pritha, that is Kunti, behold all these Kurus assembled here. Guda Kesha has two meanings. One, Guda means curled and Kesha means hair. It means one having curly, beautiful hair. Second, Gudaka means sleep and Isha means master. It means who has conquered sleep. Arjuna had curly hair and he had conquered sleep as well. So he has been called Gudakesha. Eva Mukta, one who is not a slave to sleep, idleness, and worldly pleasures, but is a slave that is devotee to God. God listens to such a person and even obeys him. Therefore, in order to carry out the order of his devotee friend Arjuna, Sri Krishna Paramatma placed the chariot between the two armies. Hrishikesha. Hrishika means senses and Isha means Lord. Thus, Hrishikesha means the Lord of the senses. In the 21st verse and also in this verse, this word has been used because Sri Krishna Paramatma, who is the inspirer of the minds, intellects, and senses, and who commands the whole world, has become a chariot driver to carry out Arjuna's order. It shows how merciful God is to Arjuna. Sri Krishna Paramatma stationed Arjuna's noble chariot in the open space between the two armies. Sri Krishna Paramatma placed the chariot with his sagacity at such a point from where his kinsmen such as Bhishma, his preceptor Drona, and chief kings and warriors of the Kaurava army could be clearly seen. In the word Kuru, the sons of both Dhritarashtra and Pandu are included because both of them belong to the Kuru family, Kuru Vamsha. Sri Krishna Paramatma, by saying, Behold all these Kurus assembled here, means that by seeing them, Arjuna may think that they are all one, whether they are on his side or on the opposite side, and whether they are good or bad, and thus feeling of kinship may develop in him. This feeling of kinship may lead to a feeling of attachment and make him inquisitive. Thus, by making Arjuna an instrument, Sri Krishna Paramatma wants to preach the gospel of the Gita for benediction of the creatures of the Kali Yuga. Therefore, Sri Krishna Paramatma, instead of using Dardharashtran, uses the word Kurun. If he had used Dardharashtran, Arjuna would have possessed enthusiasm and Sri Krishna Paramatma could not have got a chance to preach the gospel of the Gita, and Arjuna's delusion, born of kinship, could not have been destroyed. But Lord Krishna thought it is his duty to destroy Arjuna's delusion. As a surgeon first gives medicine to a patient suffering from boil so that the boil may suppurate and then performs an operation to remove the diseased part. In the same way, God first arouses the hidden delusion and then destroys it. Here, Lord Krishna, by using the phrase Kurun Pashya, first arouses delusion to destroy it. Arjuna, in the 22nd and 23rd verses of this chapter, wanted to behold and observe them. So, Sri Krishna Paramatma says, Behold these Kurus. Sri Krishna Paramatma could have placed the chariot without uttering any words, but he intentionally used the phrase Kurun Pashya to arouse delusion in Arjuna. There is a vast difference between love for the family and love for God, though there is also a little similarity. When we have love for the members of the family, we don't mind their faults because we have the feeling of mindness to them. Similarly, God also does not mind the shortcomings of his devotee because he has the feeling that he is his own. But in domestic love, importance is attached to matter such as body, etc., while in love for God, there is importance of feelings. In family love, there is importance of delusion, while in love for God, there is importance of intimacy. In family love, there is a darkness, while in divine love, there is light. In family love, a man is negligent of his duty, while in love for God, being engrossed in love, a man may forget his duty momentarily, but is never negligent of his real duty. In family love, there is preeminence of the family, while in love for God, there is preeminence of God alone. In the above mentioned verse, Lord Krishna told Arjuna to behold the Kurus. Now, in the next verse, Sanjaya describes what happened after that. Tatra pashyasthitaन् partah pitrunat pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratrun putran pautran sukimstata svashuran suhrudaschaiva senayorubayorapi. Standing there, Arjuna then saw on both the armies his uncles, grand uncles, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, cousins, sons, grandsons, friends, father in laws, and well wishers as well. When Sri Krishna Paramatma told Arjuna to behold the Kurus assembled on the battlefield, Arjuna saw the members of his family assembled on both the sides. He saw his father's brother named Bhurishrava, who was just like his father. He saw his grand uncles Bhishma and Somadatta, etc., preceptors Dronacharya and Kripacharya, etc., maternal uncles such as Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, Shalya, and Shakuni, etc., brothers and cousins Bhima and Duryodhana, etc., sons such as Abhimanyu, Gadotkacha, Lakshmana, that is Duryodhana's son, etc., grandsons such as the sons to Lakshmana, friends to Duryodhana named Ashwathama, etc., and also his friends, fathers in law such as Drupada and Shaibya, and also well wishers such as Satyaki and Kritavakma, and many more. In the next verse, there is a description of what Arjuna did after seeing the members of his family in both the armies. Tan samikshya sa kaunteyaha sarvan bandhun avastitan kripaya paraya vishto vishidanidamabravit. Arjuna, the son of Kunti, seeing all those relations present there, was filled with extreme compassion and uttered these words in sadness. Besides the warriors mentioned in the previous verse, Arjuna saw great grandfathers such as Bahlika, brothers in law such as Drishtadyumna, Shikandi, and Shurata, sisters' husbands such as Jayatratha, and several other relatives who were posted in different positions in both the armies. Sakaunteyaha means that Arjuna, who was ordered by Mother Kunti to wage a war and who, full of valor and stout heartedness, entered the battlefield to observe the chief warriors of the Kaurava army, became faint hearted. After seeing the warriors who were related to him through family and learning, on both the sides, Arjuna suddenly developed the attitude of kinship because he thought that on both the sides there were kinsmen and they would be killed in the war. In this way, his family would be destroyed on either side. Thus, his stout heartedness gave place to faint heartedness and manliness to effeminacy, and he gave up the idea of the war. This faint heartedness has been called by Lord Krishna Kashmalam, viz. Dejection or infatuation, and Hridaya Daurbalyam, viz. Weakness of the heart. Arjuna in chapter 2, shloka 7 also accepted it as karpanya doshopahata svabhavaha, with nature being tainted by the vice of faint-heartedness. Kripaya Vishtaha means that the vice of faint-heartedness is a temporary phase in him, while stout-heartedness is a permanent virtue of his life. Thus, the temporary phase of faint-heartedness can't last too long, while his stout-heartedness will remain forever. What is extreme compassion? The extreme compassion in Arjuna is that he does not think and make efforts to kill his cruel and unrighteous opponents such as Duryodhana, Duchasana, and Shakuni, etc., who without any reason insulted the Pandavas, gave them troubles, and tried to kill them somehow or the other. On the other hand, he is taking pity on them and is thus deviating from his duty of the warrior class. Arjuna is very much dejected after thinking over the consequences of the war for the family, tribe, and country and speaks the following words. Arjuna uvacha drishtvaimam svajanam Krishna युयुत्सुं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपयुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं श्रंसते हस्तात् त्वक्चैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोऽभ्यवस्थातुं Brahmativa cha me manaha. Arjuna said, O Krishna, at the sight of these kinsmen thus arrayed here, prompted by war, my limbs give way, my mouth is parched, my body quivers, and hair stands on the end. The bow, the Gandiva, slips from my hand, my skin burns all over, my mind is reeling, and I am not able even to stand. Arjuna loved the name Krishna very much, so he has been addressed by this name in the Gita 9 times more than any other name. Sri Krishna Paramatma similarly loved Arjuna's name Partha, that is, the son of Pritha, Kunti. Therefore, while talking together, both of them addressed each other by these names, and this fact was well known to the people also. Therefore, Sanjaya at the end of the Gita mentions Krishna and Partha, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha. Viz, wherever is Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, and wherever is Partha, the wielder of the bow. Dhritarashtra, in the first verse of this chapter, uses the phrase Samaveta Yuyutsavaha, that is, gathered together, desirous to fight, and Arjuna here has said Yuyutsum Samupasthitam, arrayed, eager to fight. But there is a vast difference in the views of the two. Dhritarashtra is partial to his sons, so he uses the word Mamaka, that is mine, and Pandava, that is Pandu's. But Arjuna is impartial, so he uses the term Svajanam, that is kinsman, which includes persons of both sides. It means that Dhritarashtra is worried about the death of his sons in the warfare, while Arjuna is worried about the death of the warriors in both the armies, because he thinks that both the warring groups are his own kith and kin. Till now, the word drishtva, that is, having seen, has been used 3 times. Drishtva tu Pandavanikam, having seen the army of the Pandavas, and Vyavasthitan Drishtva Dhritarashtran, that is, having seen Dhritarashtra's party arrayed, and here Drishtvemas Svajanam, having seen these kinsmen. It means that there is no change in the attitude of Duryodhana as far as the war is concerned. But there is a lot of change in Arjuna's attitude. First, after seeing the sons of Dhritarashtra, Arjuna, like a hero, gets ready for the war. But now, after seeing his relatives present there, he is overwhelmed with extreme compassion. His bow drops from his hand and he is not inclined to fight. Thinking of the consequences of the war, Arjuna is worried and sad. So his limbs are giving away. His mouth is getting parched, his body is shaking, and his hair is standing on the end. The same Gandiva bow, the sound of whose string terrified the enemies, is dropping from his hand, and his skin is burning all over. His mind is reeling. He is in a dilemma and he is unable even to stand on the war front. He feels as if he will fall unconscious, and it is a sin to wage the war. After describing the 8 signs of his sadness in the previous verses, now Arjuna mentions the inappropriateness of the war after seeing the inauspicious omens. निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव न च श्रेयोनुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनमाहवे. O Keshava, I find the omens also inauspicious, nor do I see any good in killing my kith and kin in battle. O Keshava, I find the omens inauspicious. That is, the enthusiasm in the beginning of an activity leads to its success while dilemma leads to failure. So, Arjuna says that the omens, that his limbs are giving away, his body is shaking, his mouth is getting parched, are not auspicious. Besides them, other omens such as the falling of a meteor, untimely eclipse, earthquake, horrible sound of birds and animals, obliteration of the black mark in the moon, falling of blood from clouds are inauspicious, and all of them augur will. I do not see any good in killing my kith and kin, either in this world or in the next world, because only a sinner can destroy his kith and kin. Therefore, sin alone will accrue to us by killing them, and that sin will lead us to hells. In this verse, in both Nimittani Pashyami, that is, I see omens, and Shreya Anupashyami, I see good. Arjuna wants to say that whether he goes by the omens or by this common sense, certain it is that it is futile to wage a war, and there is no good in it for them and for the entire world. In the next verse, Arjuna expresses his reluctance to get such an obnoxious victory. न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च किं नो राज्येन गोविन्द किं भोगैर्जीवितेन वा. O Krishna, I covet not victory, nor kingdom, nor pleasure. O Govinda, of what use to us is kingdom or luxuries or even life? Suppose we get victory and then we get the kingdom of the entire earth and also pleasures, they are of no avail. I don't want either victory or kingdom or pleasures. When we don't desire anything, that is victory, kingdom and pleasures, of what use to us is the kingdom or pleasures? Victory, kingdom and pleasures seem pleasant only when there is a desire for them, but we have no desire for them. So, how can they be pleasant to us? After killing our kith and kin, we have no desire to live, because after death, who will enjoy those pleasures? The so-called pleasures will rather lead us to worry and sadness. In the next verse, Arjuna gives the reason why he has no desire for victory and so on. Eshamarte kangshitam no Rajyam bhoga sukani cha Taimeva stita yuddhe Pranam styaktva dhanani cha. Those for whose sake we seek kingdom, enjoyments and pleasures are here arrayed on the battlefield, staking their lives and property. Whatever kingdom, pleasures, and enjoyments we desire to have, we want them for our relatives and friends. With them, we want to please and serve our teachers, uncles, granduncles, and sons, and so on. We don't want to possess them for our personal enjoyment. But all of them are here arrayed on the battlefield, staking their lives and property. They have decided to sacrifice even their lives on the war front. If all of them are killed, for whom should we desire kingdom, prosperity, and pleasures? Pranam styaktva dhanani cha means that they are standing on the battlefield staking their lives and prosperity. If they had got a desire for life and prosperity, why would have they stood here to be slain? It means that they have renounced every hope. In the next two verses, there is the description of the people for whom Arjuna wants kingdom, pleasures, and enjoyments. Acharya pitara putraha stataiva cha pitamahaha matulashvashura pautraha shyala sambandinastata एतान्न हन्तुमिच्छामि ज्ञतोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतो किं नु मही कृते. Teachers, uncles, fathers, sons, as well as granduncles, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives, though they may kill me, I would not seek to slay them. Even for the sovereignty of the three worlds, how then for this earth? Sri Krishna Paramatma in the 21st verse of the 16th chapter will say that passion, anger, and greed, these constitute the triple gate to hell. Really, these three are the different forms of passion. They are born out of our attachment to worldly things and persons. A passion has two sides, to get the desired thing and to get rid of the undesired one. The desired things are accumulation and enjoyments. The desire for accumulation is known as greed, and the desire for enjoyments is called passion. If desire for accumulation and enjoyment is not satisfied, anger accrues. In anger, men perform actions to destroy those who create obstacles in the fulfillment of their desires. It proves that men fight to get the desired things and to get rid of the undesired ones. But Arjuna does not want to fight for either of the two. If our kith and kin, being prompted by greed or anger, want to slay me, I don't seek to slay them back out of anger or greed, because these two are the gateway to hell. Here the word api has been used 2 times by Arjuna. It means first, why should they kill me when I don't create any obstacle to their selfish motive? Even then, suppose they slay me by thinking that I worked as an obstacle to their selfish motive, I don't seek to slay them back. Secondly, though there is no possibility for the sovereignty of the three worlds coming to me by killing them, yet if I get it, I don't seek to slay them. Madhu Sudana means that you kill the demons such as Madhu and so on. But these teachers such as Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and granduncles such as Bhishma and many more are not demons, they are our near and dear ones. So why should I have a desire to kill them? Acharya means I should serve the respected and benevolent teachers such as Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and many more, rather than fight with them. It is proper on our part even to sacrifice our lives at their feet. Putraha, it is our duty to bring up our sons and our brothers' sons even though they may stand against us. Pitamahaha, when our granduncles are worthy of adoration to our father, they deserve still greater adoration from us. Though they may rebuke and punish us, yet we should not cause any suffering to them. We should rather serve them and give comfort to them. Matulaha, our maternal uncles, being the brothers of our mothers, who rear us, deserve adoration from us. Swashuraha, these fathers in law are the fathers to my wife and my brother's wives. They are just like fathers to us. So, how can I slay them? Pautraha, we should bring up our grandsons in a better way than our sons rather than kill them. Shyalaha, how can we slay the loving brothers of our wives? Sambanditaha, I should serve and bring up all the relatives rather than kill them. It is improper on our part to kill them even for the sovereignty of the three worlds. Now, Arjuna justifies his intention not to slay his kith and kin even from the point of view of the consequences. Nihatya dharda rashtraannaha ka priti syad janardana papamevashrayedasman hatvaitanatatainaha. O Janardana, that is, Janardana, the name of Sri Krishna, means a person who is worshipped by people for prosperity and emancipation. What delight can we derive by slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? Sin alone will accrue to us by slaying these desperados. We cannot derive even the slightest joy by slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra and the warriors of their army. If we kill them out of anger or greed, we shall have to repent because the memory of those kinsmen will obsess us and the grief of their death will torment us. We can't get joy in this world by killing them, and sin will accrue to us in the next world, which will torment us there. There are 6 kinds of desperados: one who sets fire, one who poisons, one who murders, one who seizes wealth, one who usurps kingdom, and one who kidnaps women. Duryodhana and his companions committed all these criminal offences. They secretly set fire to the residence where the Pandavas were expected to be sleeping. They poisoned Bhima and threw him into water. They made an attempt on the life of the Pandavas while gambling deceitfully. They deprived the Pandavas of their wealth and kingdom. And in the assembly, Duryodhana insulted Draupadi by calling her his waiting maid and persuaded Jayadratha to kidnap Draupadi, and Jayadratha also kidnapped her. In the scriptures, it is mentioned that there is no sin in killing a desperado. In Manusmriti 8:351. But it is also mentioned in the scriptures that non-violence is a great virtue. Therefore, why should we slay our kith and kin out of anger and greed? Though Duryodhana and other Kauravas, being desperados, deserve to be killed, yet sin will accrue to us as a result of such action because they are our kith and kin. It is mentioned in the scriptures that one who kills his kith and kin is a great sinner. So, how can we kill them? Therefore, it is better to break off our relationship with them rather than to kill them in the same way as relationship can cut asunder with the son, but he cannot be slain. Having pointed out the evil consequences of war, Arjuna now dwells upon the sheer impropriety of waging the war. Tasmanarha vayam hantum Dardarashtran svabandhavan Swajanam hi katam hatva Sukinasyama Madhava. O Madhava, we should not therefore slay the sons of Dhritarashtra, our kinsmen, for how can we, by killing our own kinsmen, be happy? The arguments against the slaughter of our kith and kin advanced so far or enough to convince us that it is improper to indulge in a destructive activity like war. How can we, who are regarded as virtuous persons, perform such a hideous act? Madhava, if the mere thought of their slaughter is so painful, just imagine how much more painful it would be to slay them after being blinded by avarice and anger. How can we feel happy after the slaughter? Delusion, which is born of the sense of mine, deprives Arjuna of his sense of duty as a member of the warrior class. When there is delusion, there is no discretion. When discretion is suppressed by delusion, the sense of duty gets blurred. Now, the question arises why Duryodhana does not think along the same lines as you are thinking, since you are also his kith and kin. Arjuna explains this in two verses that follow. Yadyapyete na pashyanti लोभोपहत चेतसः कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकम् कथं न ज्ञेयमस्माभिः पापादस्मान्निवर्तितुं कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन. Although these people with understanding, that is discrimination, clouded by greed, don't perceive the evil of destruction of their own race and the sin accruing from enmity towards friends, yet, O Janardana, why should we, who see clearly the sin involved in the destruction of the family, not think of turning away from such a sin? Greed consists in desiring to have more and more of wealth, property, prize, respect, and rank. It is because of greed that Duryodhana and Kauravas have lost discretion, and so they are not thinking about the disastrous consequences of the war and the sin that will accrue out of it. This inordinate greed had deprived Kauravas of their sense of discretion, and little do they realize that the kingdom for which they are bent upon, by committing the sin of destroying their kith and kin, will not stay long with them. The pleasure of possession is soon followed by the pain of deprivation, which far outweighs the pleasure of possession. With minds clouded by greed for kingdom, they don't perceive the deadly sin which will accrue by destroying their own race. A battle causes loss of time, energy, life, and property, and people are assailed by worries and hardships. When there is a quarrel between the two friends, they turn into enemies. Drupada and Dronacharya had been friends since childhood. After getting kingdom, one day Drupada insulted Dronacharya with the result that the friendship turned into enmity. To avenge his insult, Drona got Drupada defeated by him. That is, with the help of his disciple Arjuna, and thus got half of his kingdom. Then Drupada got a holy sacrifice performed to destroy Drona, and thus both Drishtadyumna and Draupadi were born. Thus they don't perceive the evil of destruction of the race and the sin that will accrue from enmity towards friends. An important fact: we are living well without the things which we don't possess. The paucity of things that was not so afflicting as it is if we miss those things after possessing them. But these things can live with us for a short time only, because they can stay with us so long our fortune favors us, and then they slip away. Thus, we remain the same as we were without getting them. We had to work hard to get them and are now sad after losing them. After getting them, we felt somewhat happy only because of our greed. If we don't have this evil of greed, we can't be happy after getting the things. Similarly, we get happiness from the members of our family because of infatuation and delusion. Thus, we see that we derive worldly pleasure out of evils. Without an evil, no worldly pleasure is possible. If there is no greed, there can't be any pleasure in accumulation of wealth. Greed destroys our discretion and we can't think in the right perspective. Arjuna says, though Duryodhana and Kauravas don't perceive any guilt in the extermination of their family and the sin accruing from enmity towards friends, yet we should recoil from such a sin. That is, it will be described in the 40th verse to the 44th verse here. Because we know it very well that destruction of the family is an evil and enmity towards friends is a sin. If those friends cause us pain, it will not be harmful for us because the pain will destroy our sins and purify us. But if we have feelings of malaise and enmity, those feelings remain with us in other births also, will instigate us to commit sins and lead us to degradation. Therefore, we should certainly recoil from such a sin. Here, Arjuna is thinking about the greed of Duryodhana and Kauravas, but he is not thinking about his own infatuation and delusion, so he can't understand his duty. There is a rule that a man can't perceive his failings so long as he perceives defects in others. He feels rather proud of his superiority that he has no defect, while the fact is that everyone generally possesses one defect or the other. If we find fault with others, it is also a defect in us. Being proud of one's own virtues and finding fault with other are the two defects which we don't perceive in us, though we do possess them. Thus, Arjuna can't perceive his own infatuation and delusion because he is finding fault with Duryodhana and is proud of his own virtue. All evils persist under the canopy of pride. Now, in the next 5 verses, Arjuna mentions the sins accruing from destruction of one's own race. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharma sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bhavatyuta. With the destruction of a family, its age-long family traditions disappear, and with the disappearance of family traditions, impiety takes hold of the entire family. In the war, there is destruction of the family. The family has its age-long traditions and time-honored usages. But when the family is destroyed, its pious traditions and usages, which lead to the living and dead members of the family to benediction, also perish because no one remains to maintain them. When the pious traditions and pious conduct perish, people lose their virtues and righteousness, and impiety takes hold of the entire family. Now the question arises how impiety takes hold of the entire family when it is destroyed. The answer is that people who wage the war are killed, but impiety takes hold of the children and women who do not take part in the battle but are left behind. The reason is that when the conversant and experienced persons die in the battle, no one is left behind to control the children and women and to teach them good conduct and decent behavior. So they don't behave with decorum that is supposed to mark the righteous persons. So impiety takes hold of them. Adharmabhirbhavat Krishna pradushyanti kulastriyaha strishu dushtasu varneshya jayate varna shankaraha. With the growth of impiety, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupt, and with the corruption of women, O Varshnaya, there ensues an intermixture of caste. By following righteousness, inner sense is purified. With the purification of the inner sense, intellect becomes pure and pious intellect has discrimination between the right and the wrong. But when there is growth of impiety in the family, the conduct of the members in the family becomes bad. The bad conduct fouls the inner sense, and the foul inner sense makes the intellect tamasi. That is the intellect which veils knowledge and binds one to heedlessness is called tamasi. With this tamasi, intellect men lose discrimination, regard the undesirable as desirable and the desirable as undesirable, and act against the ordinance of the scriptures. With this sort of intellect, the women become corrupt, viz. Unchaste. Corrupt women give birth to hybrids. If the man and the woman belong to different caste and the offspring born of the couple is known as hybrid. Here, Arjuna, by addressing the Lord as Krishna, means to say that he pulls everyone. He further asks him in which direction he will pull his family. Arjuna addresses him as Varshneya because he belonged to the Vrishni clan. He means to say that what clan will his descendants belong when the destruction of his clan takes place. Therefore, it is not proper to destroy the clan. Shankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hyesham luktapindodakakriyaha. Intermixture of caste leads the race and also the destroyers of the race to hell. Deprived of the offerings of rice ball and water, the mains of the race also have a downfall. The offsprings that are born of the intermixture of caste are not religious minded and do not possess decorum and rectitude because they themselves are the product of persons without decorum. So they behave against the traditions and decorum of the race. Those who kill the persons of the race in the war are called destroyers of the race. Such persons lead not only themselves but also the whole race to hell because of the destruction of the traditions of the race. The mains of the destroyers of the race fall because they don't get the offerings of rice ball and water from them. The reason is that when they get these offerings because of those virtuous actions, they go to the lofty worlds. But when they don't get these offerings, they can't continue to live in those worlds and they are degraded. The descendant who is a hybrid has no regard for his ancestors, so he has no sentiments to offer anything to them. Moreover, even if he offers anything such as obsequies as a social custom without any regard and against the ordinance of the scriptures, that is not received by the mains. The reason is that he is not eligible to perform such rites, so they fall. दोषैरेतैकुलग्नानां वर्णशङ्करकारकैः उत्साद्यन्ते जातिधर्माः कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः. The age-long caste traditions and family customs of the destroyers of the race get ruined because of the intermixture of caste created by the bad deeds of these race destroyers. With the destruction of the race in the war, the family traditions are ruined. With the ruin of the family traditions, impiety takes hold of the family. With the growth of impiety, the women become corrupt. With the corruption of women, there ensues an intermixture of caste. With the intermixture of caste, the caste traditions of the race destroyers are ruined. What are Kula Dharma and Jati Dharma? In every caste, a family has its own traditions, customs, and decorums which are known as Kula Dharma, whereas the traditions of a caste as a whole are known as Jati Dharma or Varna Dharma. These traditions are general and they are approved of by the scriptures. These traditions get ruined if they are not followed. Utsannakula dharmanam manushyanam janardana narake niyatam vaso bhavatityanushruma. We have heard, O Janardana, that men who have lost their family traditions dwell in hell for an indefinite period of time. God has endowed man with discretion and the right to perform new deeds. Hence, he is free to perform good or bad actions. He should use discretion in performing actions. But he, being overpowered by greed of pleasures, etc., does not use his discretion and acts against the ordinance of the scriptures and family traditions. Consequently, he is censured, insulted, and looked down upon in this life and suffers the tortures of hell for a long time in the life to come. This is what we have heard from our elders and ancestors. In the word Manushyanam, the race destroyers and all the other members of the race, including the ancestors of the race destroyers, viz., manes and the descendants, have been included. In the verse that follows, we are told how Arjuna was affected by the description of the disastrous consequence of fighting a battle. Aho bada mahapapam kartum vyavasita vayam yadrajyasukalobena hantum svajana mudyataha. Alas, goaded by the lust for throne and enjoyment, we are bent on perpetrating the great sin of killing our kinsmen. Duryodhana and his companions are villains. Being goaded by greed, they are not guided by righteousness, and so they are prepared to wage the war. We have the power to discriminate between righteousness and unrighteousness, virtue and vice. But we are also prepared to wage this war to kill our own kinsmen, just like ignorant people. So it is something very surprising and shocking. By doing so, we are going to commit a great sin, turning a deaf ear to the teachings of the preceptors and the scriptures. The word aho expresses surprise. It is surprising that we have decided to commit a sin by waging this war, even having known its horrifying consequences. The word bata expresses sorrow. It is a matter of sorrow that we are prepared to slay our kith and kin, being overpowered by greed for the transient kingdom and pleasure. Greed for kingdom and pleasure is the only cause that we are bent on perpetrating the great sin of killing our kinsmen. It means that if we get victory in the battle, we shall get kingdom, wealth, honor, glory, power, pleasures, and luxuries. Such sort of greed for kingdom and enjoyment is totally unjustified for such people as we. In this verse, Arjuna wants to say that a man can carry out the behest of scriptures and teachers and so on only by honoring his own good ideas and his own knowledge. But he who dishonors them can't adopt virtuous principles of the scriptures and teachers. Thus, good thoughts and ideas don't spring up in him. Then, who can check him for possessing evil thoughts and performing evil actions? Similarly, if we dishonor our knowledge, who can check us from committing this great sin of killing our kinsmen? Here, Arjuna is thinking about the disastrous consequences of the war, and so he is not willing to wage the war. But he is not thinking that his feelings of attachment, selfishness, and delusion for the family are responsible for the sort of behavior which is totally wrong for the thoughtful, righteous, and brave member of the warrior class. Arjuna in the 38th verse tells that Duryodhana and Kauravas, with minds blinded by greed, don't perceive the evil of destruction of their own race and the sin accruing from enmity towards friends. Here he says that goaded by the greed for throne and enjoyment, they themselves are prepared to commit the great sin. It proves that Arjuna knows that greed is the cause for sins. But in the 36th verse of the 3rd chapter, he asks, impelled by What does a man commit sin unwillingly and why? The answer is that here he has the feeling of attachment and infatuation for the family, so he wants to turn away from the war. Here he thinks that greed is the root cause of the sin of destruction and one's own race. But by hearing the gospel of the Gita, he wants to know the path or discipline by pursuing which he may attain the highest good, the supreme bliss. So, in the third chapter, he asks which is the force that impels a man to abandon his duty, which there Arjuna asks the question as a striver about his duty, not as a person having attachment for his family. Engrossed in surprise and sorrow, Arjuna sets forth his decision, arrived at after these arguments in the verse that follows. यदि मामप्रतीकारम् अशस्त्रं शस्त्रपाणयः दार्धराष्ट्रारणे हन्युः स्तन्मे क्षेमतरं भवेत्. It would indeed be better for me if the sons of Dhardarashtra, armed with the weapons, killed me in the battle while I was unarmed and unresisting. Arjuna says, if I turn away from the war, perhaps our opponents will also recoil from it. Why will they fight when we are determined not to fight? But even if, regarding us their enemy, they zealously armed with weapons kill me, that will indeed be in my own interest, because it will be a kind of repentance for the determination which I had made in the war to kill my preceptors, and I shall be purified of the sins. It means that if I don't wage the war, I will escape the sin and my race will not be destroyed. When a man talks about a subject, it has its effect on him also. When Arjuna, possessed by extreme passion, started to speak in sadness in the 28th verse, he was not so much overwhelmed with grief as he is now. The Arjuna didn't turn away from war but went on speaking overwhelmed with grief. But at last he turns away from war and sits down, having laid down his bow and arrows. Sri Krishna Paramatma didn't speak in order to enable Arjuna to give an outlet to his feelings of sadness completely, because he knew that his teachings would be of some avail to him only when there was an outlet of his sadness. An important fact: the worldly people will support the arguments given by Arjuna, but they will not agree with Sri Krishna Paramatma, who will justify the war later. The reason is that as Arjuna is full of attachment and infatuation, the worldly people also belong to the same class. So they can't understand the point of view expressed by Sri Krishna Paramatma, who always thinks about the welfare and benediction of creatures. They will say that Arjuna wanted to escape the sin by not waging the war, but it was Sri Krishna Paramatma who inspired him to wage the war. So it was not proper on his part to do so. The fact is that Sri Krishna Paramatma did not inspire Arjuna to wage the war. He reminded him of his duty only. It was Arjuna who had invited Sri Krishna Paramatma to the war front. But seeing his kinsman on the hostile side, he was turning away from his duty. So, Sri Krishna Paramatma inspired him not to neglect his duty out of delusion, but to wage the war, because there was nothing more welcome to the member of the warrior class than a righteous war. For example, a man is going to Badrinarayana, but by mistake he starts going in the opposite direction. He happens to meet a person who asks him where he is going. The latter tells the former that he has taken the wrong direction, so he should turn back in order to reach his destination. Here, the person shows the right direction, that is the path, to the man who had lost it. Similarly, Sri Krishna Paramatma showed Arjuna the right direction of his duty. After seeing his kinsmen arrayed on the war front, Arjuna said to Sri Krishna Paramatma, I will not fight. But after hearing the gospel of Sri Krishna Paramatma, he did not say, I will not fight, but he said, I will carry out your bidding. Viz, I will do my duty. It shows that Sri Krishna Paramatma reminded him of his duty. The fact is that war was inevitable because Sri Krishna Paramatma himself, while revealing his supreme divine form to Arjuna, said, I am the mighty world destroying time, the destroyer of the world. My purpose here is to destroy these people. Even if you don't kill them, all those warriors arrayed in the enemy's camp will not survive. Thus, this destruction of human beings was inevitable even if Arjuna did not fight. If Arjuna did not fight, Yudhishthira, who with his 4 brothers married Draupadi by obeying his mother, would certainly fight by obeying her. Similarly, Bhima would never deviate from the war because he had already taken a pledge to kill the Kauravas. As far as Draupadi is concerned, she had even said that if her husbands, the Pandavas, did not fight, her father Drupada, her brother Drishtadyumna, her 5 sons, and Abhimanyu would fight against the Kauravas. All these facts show that the war was inevitable. A man can't control the happenings that are predestined. By discharging his duty, he can attain salvation, but by neglecting it, he can degrade himself. It means that man is free to attain either the desirable or the undesirable. Therefore, Sri Krishna Paramatma, by reminding Arjuna of his duty, has preached human beings that they should always discharge their duty by following the ordinance of the scriptures and never turn away from it. In the preceding verse, Arjuna expressed his intention based on many arguments. What he did after this is contained in the verse that follows. Sanjaya Uvacha Eva Muktvarjuna Sanke Ratopasta Upavishat Visrujya Shasharam Chapam Shokasamvignamanasah. Arjuna, with his mind agitated by grief on the battlefield, having spoken thus and having laid down his bow and arrows, sank into the hinder part of the chariot. War is the root cause of all evils. It will destroy the race and will lead us to hells in the next world. By thinking so, Arjuna, overwhelmed with sorrow, became firmly determined not to wage the war. Arjuna, who had come to the battlefield with a great zeal with Gandiva bow in his hand, put the bow and arrows down and, overwhelmed with sorrow, sat on the seat of the chariot. The main reason of Arjuna's grief is that when Lord Krishna placed the chariot between the 2 armies and asked Arjuna to behold the Kauravas, he saw Bhishma and Dronacharya standing before him. So his delusion was aroused. Thus he thought about the destruction of his race, that is, Kauravas didn't perceive, being goaded by the greed and the sin accruing from it. Then he said that even if the warriors of the hostile army killed him while he was unarmed and unresisting, that would be for his good. Thus empowered by delusion, Arjuna perceives good in turning away from the war, and even in his death and finally having abandoned his bow and arrows and overwhelmed with grief, sits on the seat of the chariot. Thus, we see that it is delusion which changes a hero's stout-heartedness to soft-heartedness and manliness to effeminacy. Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे अर्जुनविषादयोगो नाम प्रथमोऽध्यायः।